All right, let's do this.
Stand up.
From a defabricated garden shed in Rockland County, New York, USA, this is Stand Up with Pete Dominic. On today's episode, how in the world the country of Australia can contain itself with all of those cute, cuddly wombats. And now, the podcast host who has no need for wombats when he's got his terror-stricken dog running from turkeys, Pete Dominic!
No, but who does need a wombat, Pico? I mean, who really needs one, I think is the question. If you do, let us know, and we'll try to get you one. Hello, my friends. Thank you, Pete, and thank you for joining me, pressing play, subscribing to the podcast, and especially if you are a paid subscriber, that means you get to hang out with us tonight. And that is how you fill your cup every week. Just join us Thursday nights at 8 Eastern. You'll get an email once you sign up to be a member of our community, a supporter of the podcast, and the email has a link. And then you come meet us, and we have drinks and a lot of fun and a lot of laughs. And you get to meet a whole bunch of new people and make new friends, and it's awesome. So that's tonight, the Thursday night Stand Up with Pete Dominic Happy Hour Hangout, hosted by me, Pete Dominic, and a wombat. Okay, that's tonight, and I hope to see you there. Also today, if you're listening on Thursday, the 23rd, I will be co-hosting the Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM. I'll be there pretty much the whole 3 hours on SiriusXM's Urban View. That's channel 126 on SiriusXM. Really always looking forward to going back. No hard feelings. Karen has always been specifically good to me. And so very excited to be joining her today. And you can listen to that, I suppose, anytime on demand. But that'll be a really interesting, funny few hours today, the 23rd. Right now, I want to share my conversations with the great Maura Quint and former Boston Globe columnist and now independent writer-journalist Michael Cohen. Both join me today. Michael hasn't been on in way too long. We had a great conversation, wide-ranging. As always, the same with Maura Quint. I think you're going to love both these conversations. And coming up in the next few shows, I've got Dr. Michael Mann, Dr. Peter Hotez is going to join me, the great Jeff Charlotte, and so much more. So stay tuned for next week. I'm going to take a couple days off, but the show ain't. It'll be here with my guests and I, as if I weren't off. But yeah, a few days next week, so looking forward to that. And I don't really think I have too much else to say at this very moment. I mean, I have a lot to say, but who wants to hear me yap on for too long? So let's get to my first guest coming up, my conversation with Michael Cohen, which you're going to love. But first, I caught up with Maura Quint. Lots to talk about with her. We start with parenting, which I always love to discuss, social media and parenting even. And as I always, get into so much more. Funny, interesting, and thoughtful. She's a writer. She's an activist. She's a good friend of mine. She's on Twitter. And if you're not following there, you should. You can now pay her for her tweet. She's doing an experimental program with Twitter because she's a very popular writer on Twitter. And you can now super follow her for like $2.99 a month, which I think is pretty cool if you want to support Maura. At Behind Your Back on Twitter, AmericansForTaxFairness.org is the nonprofit that she's now working with. So let's get to it. It's time for my latest conversation with Maura Quint. There she is. There's her face and her soul. It's Maura Quint. Yeah, it's been too long. She's back. Hello. Hi.
Hi. How do you know I still have a soul? That's making a lot of leaps right there, mister.
Oh, well, I know you lost it for an hour and a half the other day, and I feel bad for those dogs, but it came back. It came back.
If you say so. I don't know. I feel a little lighter.
Maybe I'm peeling back the curtain too far about some of our private conversations, but you were watching someone's cats at one point as a thoughtful gesture. Is that right?
I'm incredibly nice like that. Yeah.
What did that
I do all sorts of nice things.
So you do. And I know some of them, and some of them we can't speak of because you wouldn't want me to tell people about them. But the truth is you looked in on people's cats. And what does that entail? I mean, do the cats know you're looking in on them? They're cats.
This was one cat, and it was a very old cat. And I mean, basically, I was a little bit on death watch. Like, it was like, please go over and make sure our cat hasn't died twice a day. And also, like, it seems like the cat was at a point where like it wouldn't really remember to eat or drink unless it was kind of actively hearing someone put the food and drink out. And then it couldn't like get all the way to the litter box. So I was cleaning the floors. It was really like it was a whole sort of very caretaking thing for a cat, which I love people is what I'm saying. Please don't take from this that I love cats, because that's not the takeaway. The takeaway is I do.
Well, the
like
same
people.
thing could happen for those of us as we age. We could forget to eat and need someone to come over and rattle some granola around in a bowl or something. I don't know.
Is this you preemptively asking?
Yes.
You're just like, eventually, will you please come?
Will you check on me and shake some food so I remember to eat? Well, I knew that you were on death watch for this cat, and I was baiting to see if you would say it on the podcast, on the record, because I don't know. But you thought... The
cat's alive. They're back, and the cat survived. So basically, I'm like, I don't know, an angel, a miracle worker? I'm not sure. I mean, use your own word. Don't make me give you any. It's fine. Did you feel a sense of responsibility where you spent time with the cat? You pet the cat and said, talk to it maybe even? I absolutely did feel like I had to be present for this cat. I would walk in the door singing because I felt like, the cat doesn't hear voices all day. So I would just sing. But most of the time I was singing about how much I hated things around me. But I don't think the cat knew that, or if it did, maybe it just appreciated it.
Wait,
they were very hateful songs, but in an upbeat voice. They were like Disney hateful songs.
You were making up Disney themed originals, talking about, I hate the way the people behave at work, or whatever you were doing. That's what you were doing?
Okay, you're saying that like, oh my goodness, you were doing that this one time for the cat, as opposed to, this is how you literally live your life every day, all the time. You're just constantly like, you are in a musical at all times until other people give you a dirty look that reminds you that they don't want to be in a musical.
That is exactly how all musicals should work, first of all. I don't understand them. As Julia came home the other day and told me that they went to see Wicked, the girls with their cousin, and she said the thing I've been saying and you're kind of saying my whole life about musicals. She's like, I don't get it. It just doesn't. I can't suspend disbelief that they just are going to break out into song for no reason, and then everybody else knows the song and they're going to go around along with them. It's always been my criticism, and I don't feel good about it. I want to enjoy them. Yeah,
sure. So for you, it's confusing that they're popular. You want to be popular.
Yes.
Sorry, that's the only song I know from Wicked. I think a lot of people feel that way. That's like, it's too weird, which I find really weird because music is like in our lives all the time. We walk into a store and there's music playing and half the people are kind of humming along. Like, music is a constant, but you know what's not a constant? Like, there's not a superhero. If I'm dangling from a building, I'm just going to die. No one's swooping in to get me. But like, no one has a problem with that. They're just like, yeah, no, that's normal. That's fine. No.
Well,
cool with it.
I don't have an argument. You just debunked superhero movies for me. This is not fun. All right. Well, listen, here's what is fun. You know about this. And I thought it could, attempt to touch on a wider conversation about both social media and parenting and maybe the times we're in. So Julia, who I just mentioned.
I'm just going to cut you off only to say I love your attempt to be like, here's a dumb thing that happened to me. No, but it's a commentary on our times, and here's why. I just appreciate that. Go on.
Well, I'm not even going to allow for it. I mean what I said, because I do think about, believe it or not, the things I'm going to say to you and others. And you saw this. I asked you to look at this tweet, and your reply to it is representative of a larger conversation. While your joke just now about me and my stupid tweet and pivoting to this conversation is well taken, because you and I do talk about parenting. We do talk about social media, so I don't allow for it. Flag on the play. Here it is.
Oh, fine.
I tweeted today, Julia graduated 8th grade. Now, I agree with those who say that we don't need a graduation for kindergarten, 5th, 8th, and high school. I'm open to that criticism, and I'm also fine with it if we do it. But in my community, it's the biggest middle school you could imagine. There are almost 700 students in our 8th grade. They did it at a minor league ballpark, beautiful park, and it was freezing and rainy. And I knew that was going to be the forecast last night. I knew what I was walking into. And I tweeted, I'm not a bad father for not wanting to attend my daughter's 8th grade graduation on a rainy, cold morning. There's like 800 kids. It's 8th grade. Come on. Who's with me? And a couple of, I don't know why, but Patricia Arquette, the actress, replied to it and negatively. And because I guess a famous person replied, and I don't know why, she doesn't even follow me, Maura. How did she see this tweet? And I got like so much heaping criticism, not since Pedophile Gate that you solved for me. What are your thoughts on the tweet itself and social media's response to it? I'm a terrible father, many people said.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, clearly you are just a terrible father. It's hilarious because, all right.
I want to defend myself too.
I love how many of my responses to you start with me just like because I have so many different things I want to say and I can't decide which.
I talked for 5 minutes just now. Go ahead, take it.
Okay, one, I mean, I know you, right? So I know that you are look, I don't know you as a dad. You're not my dad, but from what I've heard you speak,
I could be. What?
I don't think so. How old are you?
You know that I'm a dedicated, I've never missed anything kind of dad.
No, that's right. That's right. I didn't want to I don't want your daughters to come and be like, actually, let me tell you something. I'm just allowing for the fact that I don't know everything. But from everything I've seen, you are a very involved, very caring, very like there for your kids parent, and a good dad. And my children just came in, so apologies to everyone for all the background noise because I'm a terrible mom who just lets them run rampant. Anyway, so that's something obviously, but that I know and that your listeners, I'm sure, know, and probably most of the people who follow you know. But it's the internet, so most people say, I don't know, an Arquette child is just like, who's this fucking asshole? Which is how we're all approaching the internet all the time. Just a constant state of who's this fucking asshole and why is he being such a fucking dick? And you presented in a way that allowed that. You did not there wasn't a full joke. You had to read it knowing your tone. You had to read it knowing you. So it sort of exists out there, able to be dunked on. And that is a difficult, frustrating element of the internet. And one where I'm just like, all right, well, that's fine. We've all kind of piled on, I think, at times without stopping to care who the person is or why they're saying it. So there is that. But at the same time, it was such a minor thing to say, I'm not excited for it. Was really all you were saying.
Yeah, I think I tried to give, sometimes I do, a tweet like that. I was trying to give parents or permission to not have to feel great about everything that their kids do. And so many of the types of things that my kids have done, those early concerts that they would do, the chorus, much less the instruments, were horrible. And you know what? Getting into school, every parent went and there was no parking. And then you had to stand in the crowded room and it was cringe to watch them. Half the kids have, behavioral issues, which cause them to act out and whatever. It's just, I didn't enjoy those. I'm entitled to not enjoy that. Now, do I understand why it matters to the kids to be there? Of course, which is why I never missed them. But it doesn't mean I enjoyed it, is all I'm saying. I was giving people permission. You don't have to enjoy this. It's 8th grade graduation. There's fucking 800 kids. And all it is a name reading thing. And then it's a competition between what family is the most people making noise for their kid. Our daughter had just us, Val and I, and that was...
Wow. You showed up, but you didn't bring a cheering squad?
The people in front brought an air horn. An air horn. They did.
No, is it true? Oh my God.
And
I believe it.
And there were racial undertones too, because they sang the national anthem. They said, please stand. And this whole row of black people, none of them stood. And I knew that one of the guys behind me was one of the ultra Trump cop guys, and I knew he was boiling at it. And then there were white people in front of them, and when the black people were the one with the air horn, and when they made the air horn, there's 50 of them for one kid. And when they made the air horn sound, the white people were so mad. And I am going to say there were racial undertones throughout it, but I might just be reading into it. I might just be.
I like this family because they came to win, and they did it. And I'm just won. You know what? If you're going to do it all the way. Do it up. I'm fully on board with that.
Yeah.
If you have to do it, you might as well make it
It made me want to meet that kid. I'm like, who is this kid that has so many people that care about this bullshit event?
That's really funny. I mean, like, people, though, they get really, really upset about this, but moreover, they just get upset anytime a parent expresses any sort of ambivalence broadly in anything, in any way. And it's so difficult because, you know, parenting and child and family is something that everybody feels entitled to have really strong opinions about because, you know, everyone came from somewhere. So there's someone that they had some sort of interaction with growing up or, you know, otherwise. And so many people have so much stuff really like strongly embedded in here was my experience. And therefore I need to throw this at the world all the time. My experience. And, you know, that can be true. It can be important. It can be good that they're able to like express something that maybe wasn't otherwise getting said. And at the same time, there's lots of like, it's not always just about your particular slice. So I'm sorry if you had a parent who was not, who was just bad. Like, I don't know how else to put it, just a bad parent. Yep. There's lots of them.
Or not present at best.
Right. Like, right. There's a ton of that, but not everyone has that. I have gotten in trouble on social media for making a joke even about, I think I made a tweet that was something like, so most of my experience as a mom has been standing around while something small hands me trash. Like, which is just like, that's just every moment. My kids are just like constantly like, if they have trash, at least they don't throw it on the ground, I guess. But like my pockets are full of like popsicle sticks and like, just like, I don't know, dirt, like just random shit all the time. But I got shit online for saying that, for posting it because I was assuming a neurotypical child and they wished that their child had the ability to give them trash.
Goodness gracious. Wow. There you go. That's one way, I guess, gain perspective on how, I mean, my response would have been, you should feel lucky. My daughter literally leaves a path of garbage in everywhere, inside, outside, still. The fact that your kids that's the perspective I would offer. But the larger point too, and you responded to that tweet, by the way, which is the where I want to take it now. You write, wow, this many people mad at you for making a joke about not loving one aspect of parenting. I'd almost think you were a mom. So I really didn't. I don't mind this criticism, by the way. It's interesting. The social media, we could talk about how people are crazy, but on social media, and everybody has an opinion because they're a parent. But I never thought of it as a gender dynamic when I tweeted it or when I thought about it. And I certainly there's that part, but also just the point of you saying, you giving people permission to not love every moment of parenting and certainly allowed to be able to complain about them if we want publicly.
It's been a real thing in terms of moms, I think, in particular, because I think this is just put on moms more, that we are supposed to love and cherish every moment, which is just one of those like, oh boy, okay, thanks. But no, parenting is really hard and sometimes it's annoying and sometimes I hate what I have to do, but I'm doing it. But there is this sort of like bad faith interpretation all the time. And from my experience, it's come at moms a lot more. It's like we let dads go do things and have lives, but like moms get a little bit, they still get this sort of expectation that they're just going to be smiling and happy and like nailing every minute of the parenting experience. And it's just not the case. So there's been these like, I think this is where it was kind of interesting to me, is because of that expectation of like perfection of momhood, there's this sort of counter response where it's just like, no, so being a mom sucks. And like, there's a little bit of an empowerment there. Yes. Whereas like, it's like all kind of cut off from dads. It's like, it's almost like nothing has been expected of dads. Now we're starting to expect something of dads, but we also are therefore like hypersensitive to dads being upset. It's like I think culturally we put these different dynamics and expectations on the gendered parent element.
So
which,
well said.
Is changing, but
when some of this, the growing pains maybe have to take place on social media. So you're welcome, folks. Now let me ask you another question about social media and in relation to a tweet of mine. because you've been one of my favorite, if not my favorite, critic of ugly ultra wealth, specifically, of course, billionaires. And you've been working hard to get rid of that kind of wealth all of your activism career. But this week, Elon Musk tweeted something, and I don't remember what it was, and I'm not sure it matters. And I just responded in a reply, I hate you. And I wish I hadn't responded to that. I literally was in a bad place, as you can be sometimes, in general. And I was looking at social media, and I shouldn't. And I shouldn't have written that. It was just negative, and it's not really me. But I didn't want to delete it once I got the criticism. But my question for you is, holy shit! I mean, I don't know how Twitter works, but I got piled on that day too for criticizing him. It wasn't so much of the point of the fact that I wrote I hate you. And my newest reason to hate him, by the way, is that he's an advocate for green energy, and yet he's supporting Ron DeSantis, who is literally against solar power in Florida.
Against life and humanity.
What are your thoughts about the hero worship? Like, who are these people? They're not all these kind of weird right-wingers now, or are they? Like, who are the people who like Elon Musk enough to certainly defend him on social media, much less at all?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. Like, there's definitely, he's become a hero of the right. So definitely there's a lot of that at play. But, there's also this general belief that that prevails among so many people that they are going to be able to be very rich. That,
right.
They're just going to keep at it, or they're going to hit the right thing. They're going to stumble in some way into billions of dollars, just like falling into a pit like Scrooge McDuck one day accidentally. They're terrified that, they're going to get that wealthy and people are going to come at them, which is insane and ridiculous because people have no concept of what that means.
And I kind of bring that up because of your tweet along those lines that you wrote, life is, all things considered, incredibly short, and the possibilities of how to spend it are vast. So why? Why, with so many options for your days, your years, your heart and mind, would you ever waste any single moment of hero worshiping billionaires? That I just thought was such a well-crafted, as so much of your tweets are, thought. And it's kind of what you just said. I don't know if you'd add anything else to that tweet or what you just said, but I love that.
Well, no, I mean, actually, when I was tweeting it, and I was thinking about billionaires, obviously, because that's what I do all day. That's what I do. I sit and I think about billionaires. It's a very exciting life. But I actually started from a place of hero worshiping just about anyone. Like, I struggle with any level of hero worship because it's like, it can be kind of fun. It can be kind of like, it can give people a boost. It can give them something to sort of aspire to, or some sort of hope that, like, oh, this is the type of person I want to move toward. Here is a living, breathing vision board that I aspire to someday access. Yeah. Which, like, okay, that's nice. But this idea that we hold anybody up as like, no, they're beyond reproach. They're something like pure. They need to be above us mere peasants is just so difficult for me, even if it's just someone talking about a musician that they like, or, an actor or something.
Well, I'll tell you mine and be honest, like you wouldn't be. Like, I've been thinking a lot about how I aspire to be like Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, specifically his temperament, also his generosity, his kind of his altruism, and his body of work. And he's kind of my hero to worship because I want to be more like that guy. And I know that might sound bizarre to people, that's at 46. That's where I need to get closer to that guy. That's what I want to be. What do you want to make jokes, first of all?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I want to know how many puppets you have on hand right now.
Hold on. 4. Is
there a trolley system here ready to go?
In the shed.
Okay.
It comes from outside right through the shed. Yes.
That would be amazing. So, okay, first of all, I think always better that your heroes be dead. Because it's just, there's fewer places to go with that, less possibilities of, absolute disaster. So that's a good start. Thing 1. Thing 2, look, I don't know what the deal is with that dude. I'm going to spend my entire life holding my breath, like desperately hoping something horrible doesn't come out about him. Like, I don't even know what it could possibly be, but like, oh, he does seem to be this sort of remarkably pure person. However, I will also say he seems to be a little like the one thing I can point to in like a human quality of a flaw for him is there seemed to be something about him that was really, I don't know, I want to say like obsessive or like, but like, you know, he would weigh himself every single day and be upset if it changed at all.
Yikes.
But not in a fat phobia kind of way, just in a controlling his body sort of way, just in a like disciplined person.
I didn't
like
know that.
Like there's some elements where it's just like, right, there's probably, even if it's not bad, there's something here that I feel like at least points to some level of maybe not being 100% neurotypical. I don't know, which is not bad, certainly. I just mean like, it's not always something that we can all access. Like there might be something else at play in someone's brain that is allowing them these other routes that we do not all have the ability to follow down. But if you're going to hero worship anyone, yeah, he's the best person that I've ever found. Really, it's hard to find a bad word about him, and I hope to never find another like nothing. I hope to find nothing.
Do you do this though in a similar way? Are there people in your life? They don't have to be well-known people, just people that you know personally. Do you look at them and say, I would like to have some of the qualities that they have. I'd like to work towards being more like that person in this specific way. Not that you could ever be like another person, but like for me, it's like temperament and just the things I just mentioned about Fred Rogers. Do you do that? Is that weird to do at our age?
I think that's really normal to do, but I found that a way not to do that is surround yourself with terrible people. And then it's just like, great, because it's just like, they're all like, oh, I want to be like you. And you're just like, wow, I'm amazing. I'm sorry that you suck, but I appreciate that. Thank you. No, I mean, like, I think that most people look to others as their sort of roadmap to life in one way or another. We go, oh, well, I like what that person has going on. And hopefully it's something that they want to work to emulate and not just like sheer envy of like, they have a boat. Fuck them. I want a boat. Like, hopefully it's something more along the lines of like
character qualities.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I aspire to be more like that. But even with, friends and stuff, I think it's always important to recognize that we're all just tremendously flawed. We're all just stumbling through it. Nobody's figured it out and cracked the code. Like there's not a perfect person. And a lot of times, even when you see someone like and go, oh, I would like to aspire towards that quality. Great. Aspire towards that quality, but don't hold that person as the like hero of that quality, because they could still stumble and fall. Just because what you're seeing is like, you know what, that person is super disciplined. I want to be more disciplined. Right. I'm going to aspire to that. If you hold that person up and go, yes, that's the person I want to be, when that person has their nervous breakdown and like drops all their discipline, it'll shatter your world because you're just like, oh, that's not accessible, I guess. Like, no, that's not the point. The point is this quality that you saw that they were embodying for this period of time is something that you want to work towards. You need to like, I think that a person needs to kind of divorce that from the individual and instead hold up the type of person you want to be and the qualities of person that you want to be.
I like it. I'm glad I asked you that one. All right, last thing I want to ask you because, all right, here's the tweet that I want to get your thoughts on. This is about Texas. I forget who wrote this. Brian Tyler Cohen. The new Texas Republican Party has voted to shut out Log Cabin Republicans, an organization of gay Republicans, from participating in their convention. Log Cabin Republicans just said it's shameful they are being excluded and that Republicans are being narrow-minded. You wrote around that news on Twitter. You wrote, I have a lot of thoughts on this topic. To start, ha, 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 ha. Many more ha's than that. And this is your space to share those thoughts.
Yeah, well, as we're talking about traits that one can aspire to, obviously my maturity is something that people can look to and say, wow, that's something I want to be. Yeah, I mean, like, fuck those guys, basically. Like, stop aligning with fascists and then being surprised when the fascists don't want you around. Like, that's just been as old as time. We see continually Republicans are down this march of just like, we want to be more and more white supremacist, male, homogeny kind of thing. And we are going to be exorcising anyone who is different from that from the group. And we're calling the herd and we're going to keep doing it. And it's like, this isn't a shock. It's not a surprise. This has been coming for some time, and you have been supporting it. So it's it as individuals, I can feel bad for you. As a group, go fuck yourself.
Well said, and a great place to end. Maura, thank you so much as always for joining me here on a rare, what day is this going to post? Thursday. I appreciate you saying yes as always. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
All right, there she goes, Maura Quint at Behind Your Back on Twitter. You can now super follow her on Twitter for $2.99 a month if you want to support her there. And that is a great thing to do because she is an awesome person and a good friend of mine. Always fun and thoughtful and brilliant and hilarious here on the show. So please go support her there right now. Yeah, okay. Now, I've got Michael Cohen joining me. Michael is a former Boston Globe columnist. He's an author. He's a writer. He's a former speechwriter for the State Department. And I subscribe to his newsletter, Truth and Consequences, and you should as well. Michael has always got all kinds of interesting, strong opinions on things. And I think that we always have pretty good conversations, Michael and I. Really good conversations, or else I wouldn't tape them and share them with you. And today is definitely no exception to that. We covered a lot of ground, including the NYPD's invasion of his Brooklyn neighborhood for a funeral. Security? Real weird. Truthandcons.substack.com. Truth and Consequences is his new project. You should definitely check it out and subscribe to it if you haven't already. Check out his books, American Maelstrom, the 1968 election and the politics of division, as well as most recently, Clear and Present Safety, the world has never been better, and why it matters to Americans. He wrote that, of course, before the pandemic, but still really good and relevant and important. So check out truthandcons.substack. Follow Michael on Twitter, where he's very, very good, at SpeechBoy71, and listen to our conversation, which starts right now.
And I'm saying good night, so get some sleep. Now we can, guys. No, good night. Okay, we can start. Pete. I'm good.
Are you?
I want to talk about Rusty Bowers.
Okay.
Which, by the way, if I ever go into porn, that'll be my porn name, just for the record.
That is hilarious, and I haven't heard anybody say that. Rusty Bowers, absolutely right.
You're being sarcastic, aren't you?
No, I'm not. That's a hilarious porn name. I absolutely want to see that man in action.
Okay. Well, it's just like a rusty trombone sort of take.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're going for, and I see it, and I'm here for it.
Okay.
Why do you... I actually just saw something. I guess I didn't see the whole testimony, or at least not his whole testimony. Apparently, I thought I saw the whole thing, but I just saw that in your tweets at SpeechBoy71, everybody, that apparently he said he would still vote for Trump if he was the nominee.
That's what he said.
Is that at all why you wanted to talk about him, or is it something else?
That's why I want to talk about Rusty
Go ahead,
Bowers.
then.
Because Rusty Bowers is the problem with America. And that's a strong statement, I realize. But what I am getting at here is that Rusty Bowers did something. And by the way, as we know, he's the Speaker of the House in Arizona. He testified on Tuesday. He resisted Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Kudos to him for doing that, right? Wouldn't give into it. He told Trump, told Giuliani, people around him, that this was illegal, what they wanted to do. He wouldn't break his oath of office. Blah, blah, blah. All that stuff that he deserves lots of credit for. And yet, he said he would still vote, even though he acknowledges that Donald Trump tried to break the law, tried to overturn a free and fair election. He would still vote for over Joe Biden. That is inexplicable to me. How can you say, on the one hand, this person did this awful, terrible, criminal thing, and on the other hand, say you'd vote for him to spend 4 more years in office? It's like, I don't know what more evidence we need. Republican Party is a cult. It is a cult of people who have more allegiance to their party than they do to the country.
Could it simply be something like he's the one who's going to appoint Supreme Court justices that are going to change the entire face and culture of America?
Yes. I mean, I think that's probably why Rusty Bowers wants to support Donald Trump. But if you can only view politics through that narrow of a prism, you can support somebody who you openly acknowledge, testified before Congress, tried to break the law. How does that outweigh? How does the Supreme Court justice outweigh putting a criminal, someone you acknowledge as a criminal, in the Oval Office? It's just.
I feel like it's more specific. The issue is, if it's about Supreme Court justices, I understand that. I can understand that. No matter how terrible of a person he is, he's a rapist, but you know what? He'll support these justices. But what about democracy? Is what's on the other hand, it would seem.
Right. I mean, okay. So I said criminal, which is one description, but you're right. Somebody who doesn't. I mean, this guy Bowers, almost started crying, talking about how he believes the Constitution is divinely inspired. His oath to the Constitution he takes very seriously. Does he not recognize that Donald Trump doesn't feel that way at all? That Donald Trump, doesn't care about any of the basic democratic principles that Bowers says he cares about? It's just.
The other thing I want to ask you about, and I can't quite understand why we're not hearing more about this, and even you're kind of saying that, Rusty Bowers had a integrity to and commitment to the Constitution and his principles, but then he did the right thing. Mike Pence did the right thing. I don't understand that argument or that point, because what they were being asked to do was commit a crime, to make up a lie. Like, if you have a choice between two things, and one of them is, well, you're asking me to do something I don't think anybody will believe what you're asking me to do, get these fake electors or any of these other things overturned, give me these votes. I can't do that. How could I do that? It would be a crime if I did that. It's a weird thing to give people credit for not stealing.
It's like, I saw somebody tweet this out. It's like, I drove by 7 banks yesterday. I didn't rob any of them. I'm a hero like Mike Pence. I mean, it's kind of like that, and it reminds me of the old Chris Rock bit, about that's what you're supposed to do, right? Doesn't that remind? I mean, that's what I think of when I think about this. I'm like, okay, look, I'll give Pence credit for at least, was saying a lot of pressure from Trump to do the right thing. But again, like, the choice was to break the law. The choice was to do something illegal. And I understand, like, that Trump put his life in danger. I get all of those things, but you don't really get a lot of points in my book for just doing what you're supposed to do. I mean, I think, like, Raffensperger, who testified to our Secretary of State, I'll give him a little more credit, because not only did he withstand Trump's, threats and Trump's pressure, he dimed him out by recording the phone call in which Trump asked him to find, 11,780 votes so he could win Georgia. Like, that guy, I give that guy a lot of credit for doing what he did. And look, these guys, people like Raffensperger who had these horrible threats against their lives. I mean, he said he broke into his daughter-in-law's house, who was a widow, by the way, has 2 children. I mean, that's just horrible.
Crazy.
So I think in that sense, I give them credit for because they had to withstand so much pressure. It's funny. I'll digress for 1 second, because we're talking about one of the guys who was in the deposition on Tuesday testifying about the pressure was this guy, Mike Shirkey, who is I think he's the head of the state Senate, Republican majority leader of the state Senate. I was talking to a friend of mine out in Michigan who said, Mike Shirkey is like kind of an horrible person. Like, he has said horrible things. He's done horrible things. And yet, here's a guy who was like, you got to give him credit, because he, like, stood up to Trump's pressure and didn't give in, and, like, got all these death threats and what have you, and did the right thing. But back to your other point, like, how much credit they really deserve, and the fact is, on Pence, he took him a year just to acknowledge he did the right thing. And here's the thing that makes me kind of crazy. What if Mike Pence had in January, 10th, 4 days after, had said, here's what Trump tried to do. Try to get me to break the law. For every Republican senator who is debating impeachment, articles of impeachment, he needs to be impeached for what he did. Or any of the people in the White House staff could have said to the world what Trump had done. Yeah. They didn't. They didn't say a word.
Well, Mike Pence Mike Pence could have, in December, as soon as the promotion for the big concert began. It's going to be wild. January 6th. That's when, as long as Mike Pence does what he's supposed to, he could have immediately, as soon as he started researching what the vice president's role was and so on, he could have immediately been like, hey guys, don't come.
I'm not down with that. No,
don't come that day. That. He could have prevented January 6th, at least, certainly could have made it a lot fewer people, dampened the mood. The people wouldn't have been excited to come if they thought, Mike Pence is not going to do this, so don't come. You're wasting your time.
Look, or he could have just, gone public with what was going on.
He also could show up. He could testify right now if he's any kind of man. Look at this black woman, this black family testifying.
I know.
And the courage that takes compared to all these other people that won't testify who get protection.
Somebody tweeted this. I wish this is the kind of tweet that I see and I'm like, I wish I thought of that. But he basically, he's not testifying. He said nothing for a year so he can finish ninth in 2024 in the Iowa caucus.
Yeah, his family
that's literally what he's doing, because he somehow has this delusional idea he's a political future within the Republican Party, which he does not. He has no future. And he is not doing the right thing. He's not standing up for democracy. He's not standing up for the rule of law because he thinks somehow he has some kind of political viability going forward, which he doesn't. It's pathetic. You
had a really comprehensive piece on the hearings you had on Tuesdays titled Mr. Trump, Have You No Decency? And in this piece, you do talk about the Shay Moss and her mother, Ruby Freeman, the two election workers in Georgia targeted by Trump with false allegations over voter fraud. Shay Moss sat there, and when she said that she's gained 60 pounds and she can't go anywhere, that might be the most kind of naked and vulnerable I've ever seen someone testify in a situation like this. And all of America's heart just opened for this poor woman who basically represented so many of Donald Trump's targets over the years, but who could have been more destroyed. Like, what a perfect example of how his destruction actually manifests. And you wrote about this, so I'll shut up.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I don't know about you, but when I was watching that, I kind of vacillated between part one, almost wanted to cry.
Yes. Oh, rage and sadness.
It was rage and sadness. But you wanted to cry, I wanted to hurl my TV out a window because it made me so angry to see this woman who was an election worker, and she talked about how she wanted to be involved because, she had grandparents who weren't able to vote and she wanted to help people and people remembered her and they knew that she helped them. And it was important to her for other Black people to vote. And she's like the kind of person we need more of in America, right? Somebody who does this job, which is a thankless job, let's be honest, but who does it because she believes it's important. And she gets, called all these terrible things by the president and by Giuliani. I mean, Trump called her mother a election hustler. I mean, why don't you just use the N-word, Mr. President? Because that's what you're trying to say.
Yes.
Giuliani was like, she was something about, that she was stealing votes, like stealing cocaine or heroin. Again, just call it the N-word because that's what you're thinking.
Yes.
And it's obvious. And like, it's so disgusting. So disgusting. And this got me thinking about today. I watched Tim Scott, who's a Black senator from South Carolina, talk about how he wasn't watching the hearings and he still does support Donald Trump. Like, how do you even look yourself in the mirror knowing that he's making these openly racist attacks against other Black people? I mean, it's gross. Look, watching her, I was so impressed with her. I mean, I can't imagine how difficult it must be for someone who's a private citizen who is not, used to being in a kind of spotlight to go before Congress and testify about this experience. I mean, hats off to her. She's extraordinary. And her mother, Lady Ruby, as she went by, she was extraordinary.
Extraordinary.
And what they had to put up with, whatever you say about Donald Trump, and there's so many terrible things you can say about him, he's a thug and a bully. And I don't think you could have seen more evidence of it than those two women testifying about what he did to them.
I haven't talked to you in a while, and that's a shame, and it's my fault. But I worked on the Board of Education campaign here, and listeners know some of what happened. But long story short, to make the point, I was threatened twice. Well, the
Really?
second of which I'll tell you off air exactly what happened, but it was serious and silenced me. And what they did to these women who were poll workers, I was just on a campaign. I was working on a campaign for BOE, my friends. I was trying to help my friends get elected to the Board of Education. And these women are poll workers. And we can talk about the whole long list of people who are intimidated. And isn't this part of fascism? Isn't this part of the playbook to intimidate people to not be involved? In this case, this woman was second guessing her commitment that she kept saying, I wish I'd never done this, been a poll worker. That's what they want,
And
right?
She said every single person who was a permanent employee where she worked, on with the election administration had left, had quit. They didn't want to put up with it.
Right.
You know, I mean, look, and I'll say something, we're in a sort of business where, I mean, maybe I get it more than you do, where I write opinion and people don't agree with me and they call me names. It happens all the time. And, that's part of the business and I'm used to it. And you develop a thick skin. But, most 99.9% of Americans don't want that, right? Don't know how to respond. People randomly start calling them terrible names. And she's talking about getting thousands of Facebook messages, of people attacking her. I can't imagine the trauma that creates for somebody, at this point, I'm sort of used to it. But, I think when it first happened to me, I was like, oh my God, this is horrific. And this is a private,
yeah, but you're writing an opinion. It might be a very divisive issue. This woman was nobody even knows her name.
Exactly.
She's just a poll worker.
Exactly.
She never did anything wrong. It was everything they did. There wasn't even, how sometimes we say there's a grain of truth about the ballots and the suitcase and the pastor hard drive. None of it. Nothing.
Nothing.
They did nothing wrong.
And it's just like, and I think, having seen like what people are capable of and the anonymity that they have on social media or hiding behind the internet, the things people are willing to say are just beyond disgusting. Like you can't even imagine. It's just beyond disgusting. And to be some just random person, innocent person who's never been in a spotlight, who's never had experience before, to be subjected to it, it's just incredibly traumatizing. And you could feel it. I mean, you watching her testify, you could feel how traumatized she has been by this experience.
Oh yeah,
right.
She did. She was so far the most convincing witness. I mean, just an innocent human being who had been, and her mom, her family had been absolutely destroyed. And the way they described it, I'm kind of known for my eccentric dress, her mom said, and she goes around town. Right. She has a unique fashion store. Everybody knows who she is. She wears the crazy glasses and the hats. Everybody knows who she is. And now they have her connected to, unfortunately, a crime. Like she can't be her own self. It's
right. And I think it's just and again, all of it is because of Trump's bullying and his thuggishness and his
and Giuliani's.
And Giuliani's, of course. I mean, they're just horrible. These are horrible people. I mean, you can't see that enough. These are truly, truly horrible human beings. And I don't say those words lightly because it's a terrible thing to say about somebody, but they are. They're terrible people.
You can't say it enough. You can't say it enough different ways.
You really can't.
People keep saying, John Harwood tweeted, and I was saying this too, that Giuliani's might have had the greatest distance to fall from grace of any American ever. And I said that a couple times, and then a couple black people corrected me. If you're a black or brown in the late 90s in New York City, he didn't fall at all. And I think that's
always this guy.
Always this guy.
I think that's interesting. It's interesting observation that black New Yorkers have a very different perspective on this. And I think, people forget this now, but before he left office and before 9/11, before he became, canonized, I mean, he was a bully. He was a thuggish bully. And the terrible behavior you see now was always kind of like there, although he kept it in check. What's different now with Giuliani doesn't keep it in check. I mean, I think part of it because he's almost certainly an alcoholic. It seems like he seems to have some kind of mental issues as well. But, that dark side of Giuliani that so many people did see and others, chose to ignore is just become who he is now. And I was, again, it's interesting because if you look at one thing about the testimony that I found fascinating is that nobody in the White House, bought into this ridiculous theory.
Nobody. None of the lawyers.
No one even tried. Nobody.
Nobody. None of the lawyers.
No one even tried. None of them, except for Giuliani. In fact, what's striking me with somebody making the point that on election night, Giuliani, appearing to be drunk, said, "Just call yourself the winner," and everyone else is like, "You can't do that." Right? I mean, it was really amazing how few people wanted to go along with this and how few people supported it. It was basically Giuliani, John Eastman, and Trump. And then Trump, brought in
the weirdest thing. Just call yourself the winner, and everybody with a brain is like, "Well, then what?" But then what? What do you mean? How long can he do that for? Well, the answer is that's exactly what he did, and he's still doing it.
Exactly.
What do you think of CNN saying that they can't use the new CNN executive, Chris Lick, saying, "Get rid of the big lie," editorially?
Oh, God. Do you say that, really?
Yeah, he's I
didn't see that. That's like, ridiculous.
Yeah. You think it's ridiculous?
No, it's ridiculous because that's what it is. That's what you should call it. I mean, it is. I mean, I don't even know what the words are anymore to describe this. It's ridiculous. There's nothing to this. There's no evidence, anything. It's just, I think the big lie almost like underplays how absurd it really is. It's like the big fantasy, like the big Trump delusion. I tell people all the time, like, if you've ever had experience around narcissists, like narcissists are really effective at creating their own reality. And I was struck by someone around Trump who said that he initially made some comment about, "Can you believe that Biden beat me?" Like initially he realized he had lost, but as time went on, he convinced himself that it had been stolen. And now he believes 100%. And it's really striking. I think he does believe he won and he's convinced himself of it, but it's so divorced from reality. It's not even, it's almost like a joke at this point, how anyone could possibly believe.
Given.
And, okay, but we can go back on the Raffensperger thing.
Yeah.
We have an hour-long phone call that he had with Trump. And there's so many things awful in that phone call, but if you listen to it, if you go back and read it, it's basically just Trump bringing up like some harebrained, pulled out of his ass conspiracy theory, and then Raffensperger saying, "No, that's not true. Like, here's the evidence that's not true." And then he says, "No, dead people didn't vote." And then he goes, "Well, what about suitcases?" "No, there are no suitcases." What about? I mean, it's.
Well, at one point he goes, "I can send you, Brad. I can send you the links. I don't know where you got those numbers." And he's like, we got the numbers from the Georgia Department of Vote Counting." He's like, "That's the only there's only one link. What link do you have? We have our link. I'll tell you, we've got our own links here. Like, wait, there's only one account that is counting these votes. Like, you don't have a separate. What are you talking about? We originate the link. We send it out everywhere. Exactly. It comes from the state, the Secretary of State. What are you talking about?"
Well, the best that reminds the best lines of the whole thing was Bowers saying he kept telling Giuliani, "Show me the evidence." And Giuliani finally said, "We have lots of theories. We just don't have any evidence." I'm like, well,
right. That was the line of the day the other day. Oh, by the way, here it is.
Fantastic line.
Here it is, Michael. CNN's newly installed CEO Chris Licht reportedly wants to phase out the use of the big lie when referring to Donald Trump's stolen election claims. A change that comes amid reports that the new boss of CNN hopes to rein in partisanship or perceptions thereof.
Oh my God!
He said it's too close to the Democratic Party's branding. The big lie, using the big lie.
His own people, and I think of Acosta particularly, have really popularized that line. I mean, Tapper and Jim Acosta, both of them in particular, have not shied away from that kind of language. I mean, I think unless you want to get rid of those two guys, I mean, I think it's kind of insane to suggest that you don't look. We've been doing this for like 6 years now with Trump. Like, we finally got to a point where people actually want to call his lying.
Yeah.
You don't want to minimize it. It is what it is. It's lying.
So I love this, and I've read it maybe like 3 times, and I'm kind of obsessed with this piece of yours at Truth and Consequences. You also tweeted it out. The NYPD took over my neighborhood. If you want to see what a self-entitled police force looks like with little respect for the citizens they serve, I have an article for you. You write, "I woke up this morning, took my dog for a walk, and found myself face to face with something akin to an occupying army in my neighborhood." Michael, what happened in Brooklyn?
So this was just insane. Basically, there was a local police chief for Brooklyn Borough South who passed away last week. He lived in the neighborhood, been there for a long time, and they had a funeral today. Now, if you ever seen these funerals,
To be clear, he was retired and he died of natural causes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that.
When you say local police, it's like, you're right. He didn't die in the line of duty. He died of natural causes, and he was retired. And I think that matters. Go ahead.
It does. Thank you for mentioning that. That does matter, actually, quite a bit. So when they have these funerals, they tend to have a lot of cops come out and they play the bagpipes, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah, because Blue Lives Matter.
Because Blue Lives Matter. Now, I understand doing that when, again, someone's killed in the line of duty, or they're even active duty. Again, retired, not the chief of the whole department, chief of just Brooklyn Borough South, and they had literally taken over the neighborhood. They towed, I estimated, 12 blocks of automobiles. Just towed them, and they didn't take them to the pound. They moved them around the neighborhood. Just took them, so you couldn't have no idea where your car was. This began last night at midnight. I kept hearing car alarms. I started to sleep last night, and now I know why, because they were towing cars from midnight on throughout the neighborhood. Then they have all these cops, including, and this is like maybe half a block from where I live, a guy with a M4 assault rifle. I saw this guy, and I'm like, what kind of gun is that? It's like, it's an M4, which is, by the way, the guns that the soldiers use in the American military. I said, why do you have an M4 rifle for a funeral? No comment. Have a nice day. Like, really? Okay. I'm just an asshole taxpayer. I don't have to answer my questions, I guess, right? And
you asked him straight up, why do you have an M4 for a funeral?
I said, why do you have an M4 for a funeral? Why? I mean, I think it's a reasonable question to ask.
I think the answer to that, and I don't know why he didn't answer it, is it's now standard issue. It used to be after 9/11, and it was almost exclusively National Guard who had those types of M16s, and almost exclusively in places like Penn Station. Yeah, and even then, you're like, man, I'm shocked that they're carrying those whatever you want to call them, assault weapons around. But now maybe it's just standard issue.
Look, I don't know, but I do not have many experience of seeing assault rifle cops toting assault rifles, where I live and where I take my kids to school. And I just felt, this is not necessary. This is ridiculous. And I feel like for a funeral, why is this here? I don't want to see this. I don't want this on my street. I don't want people carrying, assault rifles on where I live. It's not appropriate. I mean, first of all, under what situation would you ever fire that weapon? Seriously, in an urban area, would you ever fire an M4 rifle? I'd like to know how often that's ever happened in the history of the NYPD, because I can't imagine that it happens very often.
Well, did you see the film Heat?
Right, but the cops didn't have those guns. Remember, I guess that was the whole point, right? They were outgunned. That's why they have to have them now, because bank robbers who carry assault rifles. I mean, look, I understand that cops need to keep up with because we basically any Yahoo buy gun in this country. But it's just a funeral. It was a funeral. Okay, that was the first part. Then I walk over and I see what I thought was a Humvee, but I found out it was actually a SWAT armored vehicle. This $300,000, I looked it up, vehicle, just parked idly a block away from the church. Like, why is that here? There were horses. There were helicopters. There was this unbelievable just police force for a funeral. For a funeral. It made no sense whatsoever. And, it was like, and the inconvenience that was done to this neighborhood, right? Towing our vehicles, blocking traffic for 6 blocks. I talked to some of the local business folks. They're like, we couldn't get our supplies in. We couldn't get deliveries today because everything is blocked off. This went on for hours. And just a complete lack of respect for the community, people who live here, people who pay their taxes, people who, park their cars. It just was like shocking. It was like a spitting in the face of this community.
Yeah.
And the whole thing just made me sick. And that's why I wrote about it today. Cause I'm like this, and I'm not like some big defund the police guy. I'm not like, the police are all terrible. They're all corrupt. They're all bad. I'm not that guy. But, I've lived in the city 20 years. I see this constantly, this kind of like attitude of entitlement that the police have in New York City, right? They run red lights. They block traffic. They park in the bike lane. They don't even really engage with the public, except from a position of of intimidation. It's just fucking disgusting. And it's like, this is, I think, what has happened to the NYPD And since Giuliani, by the way, this sense of entitlement, they can do whatever the hell they want to do. And there's no one who will check them. And then no one will. You think Eric Adams, who's a former cop, is going to check him? Hardly.
I thought this piece, I don't know, I kind of want to see you write more about this stuff and look more into other cities if these do these types of things, and even look more into this, why they had to do that. I mean, that was just absolutely outrageous, and I don't know what kind of journalists would cover it, or who holds them accountable for that. But I thought about that piece so much. What was the reaction to both your Twitter thread and that piece? Anybody explain?
Pretty overwhelming, actually. Pretty overwhelming. I was surprised. I'd say 95% positive. Some of it over the top. I mean, calling the military dictatorship and this fascism.
Right, just in terms of maybe over the top in terms of the criticism, right? Like that, I saw that and probably agree with it. But more importantly, like, was there anybody that comes out and explains or defends it from a law enforcement point of view?
No. And I just, for the record, I did send emails. I called and sent emails to Department of Police Information trying to get an explanation for this. And I've not heard back, and I don't think I ever will.
I mean,
my question was, why is there a SWAT vehicle, why are there guys with M4s on my block? Why is that appropriate or necessary? And I will say one thing, by the way, just for the record, a friend of mine who lives in my building is a journalist, and he asked, one of the police officials, why are there, cops with assault rifles? Like, well, they're dignitaries here. These guys were sitting around leaning on cars, talking to each other. They weren't protecting anybody.
There are dignitaries present for the funeral?
Dignitaries. Yeah, that's what they said.
Meaning there are important people at the funeral?
Apparently, who needed, I guess, protection or security. It's a bunch of crap. It was obvious. A bunch of crap.
Who the hell is it? Who is somebody that was in such a target?
Unless it was the Pope himself.
Seriously,
I really don't want any. I mean,
yeah, I can't even imagine who that would be. Somebody that's targeted by, I don't know. But
they weren't doing. They were sitting around eating donuts.
You could easily be transparent if you're the communications department. Post after the fact, you could say so and so was there.
Good,
right? And then you'd have at least somebody be like, all right, well, at least we know you wouldn't.
Although then try to explain why there's I think it's called a Lenco Bearcat. I think is what it's called. It's much bigger than a Humvee. It's like this giant armored vehicle that I think the SWAT teams tend to use. It's generally about a $300,000 vehicle.
You know what's even less practical than the tank that you're describing? Those stupid horses. Like, why are we abusing these horses? Why are there police officers riding around horses in New York City?
Why were there two horses who usually they do to control crowds? Right? The only crowds here were the police. There was no need for them to be here. It was just like, oh, we're having a funeral.
You don't need a horse to control a crowd. It's not cost effective. That's great. And then they left those big piles of shit. You put pictures in the post and on Twitter.
They took the horses, as the horses do. They shit all over the street, which of course that's what they do. And I took a picture. I'm like, what if they clean this up? And they didn't. They left it there. It just sat there. I think one of the local businesses had to clean up the mess. But exactly. And here's the thing. So I live in a community that is, sort of old school Italian, which is one of the reasons why, this guy lived here for so long and was a cop. And also, as they're gentrified, they're yuppies and what have you. So it's a cross section of people who live there. But I mean, it was 100% just furious people where people were. They were absolutely beside themselves about this, right? People who went out in the morning and found their cars towed and couldn't find them because they didn't take them to a tow pound. They moved them like 3 blocks over. I mean, people were just, and this is what I think, contributes. So here's one thing I was struck by. How much of the response to this, to your question, were people like, the cops are awful, the cops suck, defund the cops are fascists, what have you. And, I thought it was over the top. At the same time, it's sort of like, it makes sense because if you saw this in your neighborhood, you'd be like, I hate the police. Like, it's completely understandable.
I would be so outraged if I went out and I had big plans or I had an audition or I had a gig or I had something and my car wasn't there. And and you're saying they put signs up the day before or something, but
the day before, but if I park my car like on a Tuesday morning, right, or whatever, I would never have known if I didn't check the car, and I don't drive the car every day. I would never have even known that they had moved the car because they were
it's infuriating. I don't know if that's a New York thing. It's infuriating. Also, all those alarms going off, disturbing just the fact that you're disturbing my peace, my sleep, because for this.
But actually, Pete, I buried the lead here. I forgot to mention the most important part.
What?
Do you know why they towed all these cars? So the NYPD who were going to the funeral could park their cars there instead. That's why they moved the cars. So the streets were filled with cars from NYPD cops who drove to the funeral parking their vehicles. That's why we got towed.
Oh, yeah, I forgot you did. I mean,
I can't even tell you how infuriating that is.
Also,
because
when
these guys can't take the subway, they can't get an Uber. I gotta have my car towed. Oh my God, it was just beyond infuriating.
Must have been some funeral. Lastly, you tweeted the other day, just saw Jurassic World, legitimately the dumbest movie I've ever seen. Then you went on to say, the screenwriters of this movie should be banished to Jurassic Park. Wow.
I stand by that.
Well, let me just say, I mean, the obvious question is, like, why would you see? Isn't that say more about you?
The
fact
kids.
that you. Oh, the kids.
No. My kids wanted to see it.
Okay,
my kids wanted to see it. My youngest 8-year-old wanted to see it with his friend, and I said, "How bad could it be?" You know, I like the first. I've only seen the first Jurassic Park. I'm like, how bad could this possibly be? It'll be stupid, but it'll be diverting. You know, whatever. Entertaining. It was legitimately not the worst movie, the dumbest movie I've ever seen. So insulting to a viewer. Do not go see this movie. It is dreadfully bad. You know, that thing also it's annoying. It's like, if you saw Jurassic Park, it's scary as hell, right? Like the scene where the T-Rex comes out and you can see the vibrations, because you know that that was like great suspense, like great action movie. This was just like, they weren't even scary. You could have cared less. It was so like, I don't know how you make movies where the dinosaurs are actually boring, but they did. They did. It's a hell of an accomplishment, I got to tell you.
All right, well, we're glad we got the review in, and it's been way too long since we talked. Everybody should go check out. If you haven't already subscribed to Truth and Consequences, you're missing out, and it's great. I love it. I love when it drops in my box, and always love you on Twitter as well on this. Thank you very much, Michael, for joining me, as always.
It's always a pleasure. I miss being on, so I'm really glad we had a chance to do this, so
cool.
Thank you so much.
Talk soon, bud. How about it, everybody? Michael Cohen, the real Michael Cohen, not the Trump's former lawyer. I was going to say that. At SpeechBoy71, at SpeechBoy71 on Twitter. Truth and Consequences. Check out that Substack. Go subscribe if you haven't already. truthandcons.substack.com. And of course, Maura Quint at Behind Your Back on Twitter. Go check her out there. Support her there. And that is all I have got for you. I hope to see you tonight at our hangout, and listen today if you're listening on Thursday the 23rd to the Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM. If you have a subscription there still, how dare you? But I'm very excited to be co-hosting her show with her 3 hours a day, 3 to 6. And I'll talk to you tomorrow, if not tonight, and anytime on the Discord platform, where you're never alone if you're a stand-up community member. So sign up now, standupwithpete.com. The show's free, but it isn't cheap. I need your support. So sign up now at standupwithpete.com. All right, that's it. That's all I've got, and I hope to talk to you tomorrow. John Carroll taking us out right now.
To let in some light, you gotta stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You gotta stare the devil straight in the eye. You got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. And even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense, and you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town, just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face a ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.